This is the real place. The gorilla is near. Maybe 5 minutes walking, no more.
World War II is finally over. Communism is spreading throughout the world. George Elisir Gatin is a large part in Colombian politics. He studied law at the National University of Colombia. He was running for president for the conservative side of the government. He was not chosen as the candidate for the conservative side, although then he did decide to run independently. He did not win, but he gained 1/4 of the votes, and therefore won the election for the conservative side. He was going to run for the next election and was believed that he was going to win if he was not killed. The day he was killed was April 9th, 1948. Around noon, he walked out of his office and he was violently shot on the sidewalk. His suspected murderer is Juan Roa Sierra, but they never recovered a gun and never gained a confession from him. His murder provoked the Bogotá rioting that lasted 10 hours and killed around 5,000 people. After that, it started a 10-year period filled with war and violence, called the La Violencia. During that period, around 200,000 people died. To the end of the 10-year period, the government created a deal called the National Front, which said each side, the conservatives and the liberals, got power for 4 years at a time. The FARC are one of the terrorist groups that are in Colombia that want to use communism to remove the wealth gap. They are a people's army that were created in 1964. They believe they are helping the people of Colombia, although they are really not helping, and they are just harming the people and the country. A sure-shot conflict, a ceasefire compromise, the Colombian Civil War of 1964. The Colombian Civil War against the FARC and other rebel groups is a very important conflict for many reasons. The thought of Colombia is usually the thought of a country filled with war, drugs, and violence. This is due to the FARC and other rebel groups' impact on the country. There have been multiple peace treaties between the FARC and the largest rebel group and the Colombian government to try and compromise. Although the treaties have not passed, because of a multitude of reasons, it does not mean that there is still a war happening. The people of Colombia voted no to the newest deal for a multitude of reasons, one of which was that the deal meant that the FARC members did not have any punishment. The people of Colombia that were affected by the FARC and lost valuable things, such as their homes and their families, could not just forgive the FARC for what they have done. Although the first peace treaties did not get approved, that does not mean there is going to be more war. The conflict will still be there, but there could be an amended peace treaty that is compromised that will work for both sides. But in the meantime, there is a ceasefire to stop the fighting and help working with the rural areas of Colombia. The spread of communist rebel groups throughout Colombia during the 1960s was because the rural areas of Colombia are very underdeveloped. They have little government protection and little government resources. There's a very large wealth gap between poor farmers and rich people that live in the cities, and there is really no in-between. The FARC and other rebel groups were there to act as a government for the rural areas of Colombia. They helped protect the areas and provide services in conjunction with acting like a government. They taxed people. There was political violence and other rebel groups for decades before the FARC started, and the country had over a dozen constitutions between the split of conservatives and liberals and the start of the FARC. Pedro Antonio Martin was a peasant farmer who went by the nickname Manuel Malronda. He was also nicknamed Sure Shot. He founded the rebel group in 1964. The FARC's aim was to seek redistribution of land in favor of the poor. Then in 1964, they declared themselves independent from Colombia, and they were a tiny village in the Nuevo de Huila mountain range. During the 1980s, the group started to get in the business of drug trafficking as a source of revenue. This needed to stop. The drugs were giving Colombia a bad reputation, and they were flooding into the United States, and this was a problem for the United States. The United States then decided to help the Colombian government fight the FARC. In 1985, the Colombian government tried to agree with the rebel groups, and they changed their constitution. Some of the rebel groups agreed, but others, such as the FARC, did not agree to the new constitutions. the FARC created a group called the Patriotic Union. This was to try and get a part in politics. The Colombian government and the FARC were having peace talks, but then the Colombian government decided to attack one of the FARC camps. The FARC reacted to this by removing themselves from politics and expanding their territory in the country of Colombia. Soon after, the FARC started using kidnapping as another source for income. In 1999, the U.S. sponsored a plan that would help fight the drug trafficking, and this would in turn directly affect the FARC and their power in Colombia, because they would have less money and less supplies and less resources. On February 27, 2000, Cristiano Quinones was assassinated by the FARC. He was a military leader that retired from duty in 1993. While he was in command, he founded the country's Army 1st Mobile Brigade. This was a corps designed specifically to target guerrilla groups such as the FARC. Then later in the year 2008, the FARC leader, Alfonso Cano, was assassinated. This was the weakest that the FARC had been since they started. 4 years later, in 2012, peace talks started. After 2 years of peace talks, on August 24, 2016, they announced a final treaty, and the people of Colombia would vote on it. The people voted, and the final impact was 50.2% against the treaty and 49.8% for the treaty. The people voted no on the treaty for a multitude of reasons. Although they voted no, this does not mean that the people of Colombia don't want peace. You have to keep in mind the fact that only 35% of Colombians voted on the peace deal. The result does not mean more war. There is still a ceasefire in place to prevent more war. But the reason the Colombians voted no is because they strongly disagree with some of the points, such as the fact that the treaty would let the FARC leaders off without any type of punishment. They did not like this because that would leave a bad message and show people that they can choose to not be punished for their crimes. The treaty would also give the FARC a part in Congress. The people of Colombia did not want that because they do not trust the FARC yet. They've only had a ceasefire for a few years, and before that, they terrorized the country for over 50 years. They killed over 220,000 people over the 50-year-long period. During that time, they also displaced over 7 million people, which is the most among any country in the Western Hemisphere. There are still landmines all around the country that will continue to kill people for decades to come. The conflict has impacted the economy of the country in a negative way. Colombia could be a thriving country. They have many rich exports, such as oil, coal, nickel, gold, flowers, coffee, bananas, a variety of fruits, and different types of clothing.
Cartels and their militias control much of the region as well.
Cuando yo iba pasando esto, vi algo y pues me acerqué a mirar, ¿no? Y pues a lo que me acerqué, pues yo sentí una explosión y me caí y ahí me desmayé y después eso no me querían traer al médico porque ahí había guerrilla por ahí en ese sector. Como a los 8 días me llevaron al hospital y pues yo tenía gangrena en el pie. Tenía 9 años. Me hace difícil y pues casi la gente no me da trabajo por mi discapacidad. Me preocupo mucho porque ellos pues, son mis hijos y pues en parte yo no he podido darle una vida mejor.
Maybe this will be a lesson for all countries to learn, that they should listen to what their people want and try to do what their people want. The Colombian government could have become a bit more socialist when they saw that the people wanted more help and they wanted more socialism. Maybe none of this would happen if they decided to help the people. Maybe they could have prevented 400,000 deaths and over 7 million people from being displaced. Maybe they could have stopped the whole civil war.